Manuel Billeter is the cinematographer on The Gilded Age on HBO. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. Manuel, I wanted to start by asking you, The Gilded Age is such a lavish period piece. It's set in 1882 New York City. So I just wanted to start by asking, what was it about the period and the setting that really appealed to you to take on this project?
Well, I mean, one of the first things that drew me into the project was when I was reading the script. It starts out with this character, Marion, that comes into the big city, by herself without knowing much, how the city works, how society works, and it's kind of like a journey of discovery in a way, and I found that quite intriguing, having myself at one point come to the city as a as a newcomer, and so I found it interesting to see or to discover this world and this city kind of through her eyes, and I felt that was a very clever and smart how do you say tool in a way to bring the audience into a new world that they that we just didn't know necessarily. Plus, I mean, it's about New York City, and it's the city that I've been living in and working in now for over 20 years, and it was kind of nice to learn more about it and to kind of like pay a little homage to my to the city.
I wanted to ask you about, you work with another cinematographer on the series,
Vanya
Sernjul,
yeah.
and he does the first and the last few episodes, and you do kind of the middle episodes of the first season. So I wanted to ask you about how did you collaborate with him to make sure that you're not only creating the visual language of the series together, but also making it seamless, because the whole season plays so seamlessly.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's very important to establish a look that is consistent throughout the episodes. So he went first together with Michael Engler, and they had been talking about the look of the show and established certain an approach during the extensive pre-production period before I got in, and so of course, I mean, to me it's important in cases like this to just really observe, and I mean and I was part of some discussions as well, of course, in pre-production, but in this circumstance, it's just important to observe and learn and kind of adapt to a style that is established, because you can't just go on your own. I mean, the cohesive look has to be maintained over the span of the whole season. Now, I hope that we achieve that. I mean, obviously, it's the approach is always a little bit different. I mean, everybody has their own little methodology, let's say, but it's a bit of a challenge sometimes to be to be mindful of maintaining this consistency, but it's not it's a good challenge. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and speaking of collaborations, you also work with director Sally RichardsonWhitfield on your episodes. Could you talk to us about the process of pre-production, working with her to kind of establish what her vision is for the episodes, and then during the shoot, what was it like to lens those episodes with her?
I really had a wonderful collaboration with Sally. I mean, we were really seeing eye to eye, as you say. We were very we had a lot of pre-production together where we were able to just go onto the sets, go onto the locations, talk about each scene, and every day just going in and during prep, and kind of like finding angles, like how do we start this scene? How do we start the other scene? How does the previous scene end? And how can we make a point of starting this new scene at this new location in an interesting or in a compelling or in a meaningful way, in a thoughtful way? And so we were there, just in the room, basically, just looking, with the viewfinder, just looking for angles, talking about coverage, how much coverage we'd need. Also, that it depends very much on the length of the scene or the content of the scene, of course. But we approach every scene individually, in order to not make it feel like every scene is kind of like the same routine, because I mean each scene has a specific purpose of being, or new discoveries that want to be conveyed, and so we were really lucky that we had so much time in pre-production, and that we were quite diligent in just really talking about every scene and finding the shots, and then coming to set with a plan, and knowing exactly what we wanted to do. Then of course, then on the day, maybe the actors would do something that or would discover something new, something different, and we could deviate a little bit or add something to it. But it's a good point. It's a good starting point to come in knowing what you want to do. Definitely.
Of course, and it seems to me like the production on the series could be quite complex, because as I understand it, you're sometimes shooting in Rhode Island at the Breakers. You're shooting in Troy, New York, which is transformed into 1882 New York, and you also are shooting on a soundstage in New York City. So talk about just navigating the complexity of the shoot, especially in some scenes that you've done where characters are moving between all of these locations over the course of a short sequence.
Right. I mean, that's why it was so crucial that we had so much time in pre-production, and that we talked about it so thoroughly, because basically the way we shot the whole series was basically we shot at locations. We started out at the soundstage in Queens, and shot out most of the like a big chunk of episodes there before we moved on to a different stage, and then to the backlot out in Long Island. And so so it is kind of crazy, because we on one day in the same location we'd shoot maybe 3 scenes from 3 completely different episodes. So so it's good to have them a common thread, that to keep continuity, and to keep to keep in mind what which episode is what, and how to seamlessly approach it. So yes, it was a little bit confusing sometimes, but it was also very it was also very a very fulfilling way to shoot it, because it allowed me, and also us, and also the other team to sometimes we'd shoot a couple of days, and then they shoot a couple of days. So during the time when they were shooting, we had time to prep for the next chunk of locations and of scenes. So it was a very I'd say it was just a very conducive way to be creative, and to just alternate between shooting on set and prepping, which because I mean shooting is it can become quite stressful. I mean you have the clock is ticking, and you have to achieve a certain thing in a certain amount of time, and there's very little room for error at that point. So so it can be quite stressful, and so it's nice to just have it 5 days in a row, or 6 days in a row, sometimes even less. Sometimes we would just have like we shoot half a day, and then at the same location the other team would come and shoot half a day, or vice versa. So it's it was a nice setting. I mean, it was a long shoot. It was a marathon, but it was kind of like comprised of just many little sprints, so to speak, rather than slogging through never-ending shooting days.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense considering, it sounds like multiple production teams working at once and on different episodes maybe on the same day. Let's talk about some of those locations, including first and foremost the Russell Mansion, which is so incredible and captured so beautifully on film. So I wanted to ask you about how you went about shooting that and lensing those scenes, especially in some of those episodes where a character that hasn't been to the mansion goes to the mansion for the first time, and you get to really capture the grandeur of the location for the audience. So talk about how you went about, trying to convey that with the camera.
Right. I mean, for the Russell Mansion and for everything that happened in the so-called new arrival characters, like the newly rich. We shot all those storylines with spherical lenses that were a little bit sharper than what we used for the old New York storyline, which was shot on anamorphic lenses, just to give it a sense of nostalgia and of and some old-fashioned, in quotation mark, look, and everything very straight on in the old New York, and new New York had a bit more, a lot more movement, a lot more dynamic camera angles. There were lots of different high angle shots, low angle shots. It was more I wouldn't say experimental necessarily, but it was going into it was supposed to feel a bit more dynamic and less set and encrusted in old traditions. So we took a great care in that when there's new arrivals showing up at the Russell Mansion, just like that. I remember there was most famously when Agnes goes and races across the street to get into the Russell Mansion that she was she swore never ever to set foot in. And so we wanted to make that, we really wanted to showcase the opulence and the grandeur of it all. So, it's how she takes that in and how it's kind of like how she gasps once she finds herself in there and cannot believe it. Another example actually is also, the Bannister, the butler of the Brooks house, when it goes over to the Russell house to fetch the dog. It was also there. We just accentuated camera angles that were more low and just really accentuated the vastness of the space and the opulence. And we kind of stayed everything in very wide shots, or even for closer shots. I just opted to stay on to use wider lenses, so the background would really, still remain in play.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes, Agnes storming over to the Russell Mansion. I'm so glad you bring that up. It's very exciting the way it's shot. Really kind of captures, Agnes's indignation, something that we don't usually see. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful sequence. I want to ask you about the Van Rhijn household. And you mentioned, shooting in anamorphic for those scenes. But it also is, it feels like a much smaller space, right? The Russell Mansion is so sprawling. The Van Rhijn townhouse is different and smaller. So I just wanted to ask you, how you approach that setting differently. Does the physical kind of confines of the space, alter how you shoot?
Definitely, yes. In the Brooks house, because it everything is smaller. I mean, it's still a very large townhouse, but it is it is less luminous. The windows are smaller. The patterns of the room and the textures are darker. It's not as vastly open as the Russell Mansion. It has more nooks and crannies. It has more openings. It has more details. Not openings, sorry, more enclosures. That it has more doors to shoot through. And so I tried with Sally. We tried to incorporate always a foreground element in the Brooks house, just so it would feel a little bit more claustrophobic, or we would shoot create like a frame within a frame where we shoot through something, just to make it feel a little bit more enclosed and a little bit more rigid, and also, so not move the camera that much in there, just to convey this sense of them being stuck in time, them being stuck in traditions and in a very rigid belief system that are entrapped in by their own will, as a contrast to the more, let's say, open space and luminosity of the Russell House, of the Russell Mansion. Yes. Right.
And in this season, we also see a lot of industrialization of the period. Railroads, the Russells are, unfortunately involved in or somewhat responsible for a huge train crash in one of the episodes. We see the printing press through Peggy Scott, going and starting to work for the newspaper. So just wanted to talk to you about capturing the kind of excitement and also the danger of industrialization, which is something you do in a number of the episodes that you worked on.
Well, I mean, it was a very exciting time in a way. I mean, doing research, before we were shooting. I mean, it was a change. It was a time in which a lot of change was happening, and it was happening, very, very quickly. And there was also like a huge, disparity in wealth, between, the ultra rich and the predominantly immigrant working class. The show mainly focuses on the 0.1% of society, and yet the presence of other groups is still felt, and there are some opportunities that we had throughout the season to kind of juxtapose those two those groups. I was I'm thinking of when the servants, when Jack and Bridget go to the Magic Lantern show, which is obviously a much more a popular form of entertainment than, for example, the Academy of Music, which we also visit. And so it was really interesting to visually distinguish between the two, between these two worlds. And there's also the world of Brooklyn, how it's called, or how it's mentioned in the show, when Marion goes and visits the Scots, going there under false assumptions. And we wanted to create a world that was very vibrant, very colorful, also very wealthy, and something something that really would create some warmth and joy as well, and something visually as rich as the Russells in their own way, or the Brooks on their way, so that was actually a really interesting and and beautiful a location that we found in Troy, where we found the Scott residence, which was a really still very well preserved original home with lots of color and stained glass, and I hope that that we could convey this sense of wealth in the Scott house as well.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And before I let you go, I know you're in the thick of production on season 2. Is there anything you can tease us about your work in the next batch of episodes? Any locations you're particularly excited about, or episodes or work that you can kind of give us some insight into?
Well, I'm not sure I'm at liberty to disclose any plot lines, but it's definitely where we left off. It's evolving. it is evolving in a very very interesting and unexpected way for many of the storylines. So that's I think as you know, as vague I can be, yet trying to make it sound as interesting as possible. I mean, we know there's the recurring how do you say that? There's the recurring sets and locations. There are some new ones. We went back to Newport to also shoot in some new locations there, as well as the old ones. We're going to go back to Troy. Same thing. New ones, old ones. We were really lucky in Troy last season when we had incredible exteriors, not just interiors, but also incredible exteriors that we were able to dress and to populate with 1880s New York. It was really magical to see the transformation. It was incredible, the work that was put in from that art department and the costumes. I mean, dressing all these people, not just the main characters, but just everybody in the background. It was a monumental task, and it was incredible, to be able to immerse oneself into this incredibly richly detailed, researched, and displayed, world of recreated world of 1880. I mean, it was quite an honor to be part of it, and it was challenging, but also just because everybody was really everybody's such a great master at their own craft in each department, that they made it kind of easy for us to come up with good visuals.
Yeah, no question. And it comes across absolutely beautifully in the final product. Manuel Billeter, congratulations on the first season of the Gilded Age. And thank you so much for talking to Gold Derby.
Thank you very much.